Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So my name is Darrell and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is 1/4/2014 and I live in Indianapolis, Indiana. Uh, and for 10 years of my sobriety, I had a sponsor that was here in Indianapolis. And then he passed, August of 2022, 2023. And then shortly, about 6 months after that, I connected. I was hosting Ralph White at a weekend retreat, and I'd been listening to Ralph for a number of years, so I felt like I knew him. And after that weekend together, I asked him if he would be willing to sponsor me and walk alongside of me. And I connected and met Raquel and a number of other folks. And so when I heard about this meeting, I was really intrigued. I think the first one I attended, Carla and Doug were speaking, and another dynamic. I felt like I knew Carla because I've been listening to her for years, and then I've since gone back and listened to some other talks, and I think this is just an amazing format. Through that time, I've gotten to know Raquel, and we talk regularly, and we've talked about God regularly. So when she asked me whether or not I was interested in doing this, of course, always looking for opportunities to talk about God. And it was an easy choice for me to say, I'd really like it if you do that with me. So, Raquel, thank you so much for saying yes. And thank you for the idea and the forming of the meeting.
First of all, you gotta be kidding me. Well, my name is Raquel and I am an alcoholic. And I want to say that I had talked to one of our speakers before and I said, why nobody asked me to speak with them? And then here comes Darrell and asked me. And I have to say, made me very nervous. It really did. When he asked me, I was like, moi? Me? You really want me to do it? And I also have I'm very excited to talk about God with you because I know we talk about God. And you know what, Darrell, every time I see you and I see that picture behind you, it's like, okay, I know I'm home. I'm in the right place. Because Darrell knows that I always tell him that picture behind him is like my personality. This is how I feel. So every time we're talking, it's like a mirror in the back. So, yeah, it's so good to be here with you, Darrell. So good to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, I think intentionally we didn't decide what we were going to talk about. We didn't have an agenda or format. We just have conversations when we're talking. So, that's how we're, visiting with you tonight with no format. I trust God to take us to the places that would be helpful for all of us to have an experience. I think one of the things that I know my responsibility is today is to do the work of our program, and I continually work the steps and work with other folks and do service and all those things. I think that puts me in a position to receive. I know I'm not the power. That's been proven to me for decades. But it's put me in a position to experience God in amazing ways. That's not only, I was thinking about this, and Brett and I were talking about this earlier. We were talking about steps 6 and 7, and I used to think that those were just flyover steps. And, I've come to really understand that they're probably not just 2 paragraphs, they're probably 164 pages, of the big book. And I also realized that it's not about behavior modification. It's really about transformation. And that's how I know that this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous is real, but more importantly, that's how I know, God is alive and real, because, he's transformed the way that I see things, the way that I think about things, and the way I experience things.
But you know that I was going to ask you thing. I told you,
Please,
so
yeah.
So you see what is happening. So he is always very relaxed And I can get into the vortex listening to him because I really do. Like, he's quiet, he's serene, and I just listen to him. And then when he said he's had many experiences, I want to interrupt and say, can you please tell me about your experiences? Because that, at the end of the day, what I always think about this whole idea of God, I believe that in the search that I engage in, right? At least for me, in that search that I engage in, I always want to see the colors that you see. I want to hear about your experience. I want to see how you sense God so I can pay attention, because I know maybe I'm missing something. For sure I'm missing a lot. So when I get the opportunity to hear your experiences, I love it. So tell me one experience.
Sure, sure. Um, so I'll give you some context. I grew up in a home that, was a church-going family, but a very dysfunctional family. A mother who was manic depressive, institutionalized, never on her own, alcoholic and addict. And so, I went to parochial school. There was a time in my life where I thought maybe I was going to be called to ministry. Got real involved in things and in the Judeo-Christian, churches and Sunday school and praise and worship and all those kind of things. And then, I was living this double life, when I was drinking and using. And, I never attempted to count days of sobriety, didn't think of it in those terms. But there were times where there was, my relationship with God must just removed and separated me from that. And then things just continually get worse and the story around those things. And then, I married for 13 years, get a divorce, but during that marriage, and then I'm currently married, and my wife and I have been, together on and off for 26 years, married for probably 23. One of the things that happened that has in the rear view, I mean, it was profound when it happened, this experience, but in the rearview mirror has taken on new colors. And I remember thinking, for a very long time, just my relationships with individuals and even romantic relationships, they felt somewhat transactional. And it was one of those situations that if you did certain things or acted a particular way or supported me in a particular fashion, then that was going to work, right? It wasn't about, this notion of unconditional love and those. I didn't think any of those things were, were reasonable. But 6 years into my first marriage, my first wife was pregnant with my daughter, Abigail, who's 31 now. And I remember when she was in her mother's womb talking to her a lot, and putting my head against her mother's stomach and singing to her, talking to her. I was really excited to be a dad. And I remember, if you can think about this, she's 31 now, so I had a video camera in the delivery room, and it looked like I worked for ABC Sports. It was so big on my shoulder. And I didn't film the birth, but I wanted to film Abigail after she was born. So she's born and she's wailing. The nurses pick her up and they take her over to the place where they're going to set her down and clean her off. And she's wailing, and and I'm amazed. I'm filming her, and one of the nurses said, "Hey, you can come over here and talk to her." And so I approached her and I said, "Hey, Abby," said Abby first. "Hey, Abby, this is Daddy." And she stopped crying. And it felt as if we were looking at one another. And I had this experience that had never happened before. There was this experience of love, this depth of love that I knew was from God. Because I hadn't read something to learn how to have the feeling. I didn't conjure up the feeling. I hadn't gone to a seminar to try to get the process to experience this. It was the most profound and overwhelming sense of love that I've ever had. And so, one of the things throughout my life, but certainly in my recovery, there's times where, my faith has wavered. But I always thought, I don't know about, this agnosticism, never the existence of God, but I don't know if he's going to deal with this thing.
Yeah.
But I've always believed in love. And I think one of the reasons why I've had that perspective is because I had that experience, right? Now, what's happened over time is I realize that that is God. And love is the oneness that we can experience with one another. That is God. And I'm so grateful to have had that experience. The way that it happened, it was immediate and it was undeniable for me that it was something greater than me. As I think about it today, it certainly was a power greater than me. And so I've always had this amazing gratitude for this experience of this incredible radical love.
Do you know what it reminds me of? Sorry to interrupt you, which I
No.
will again, for sure. It reminds me of Richard Rohr talks about this whole idea that sometimes the veil gets parted and you get a glimpse. And you won't be able to have the veil parted all the time, but once you get that glimpse, you know that it's there. You know
Mm-hmm.
that you always can come back to it. And when people talk about, there are two things when people talk about God that is a little bit difficult for me to understand at a cellular level, okay? That knowing that is difficult for me to make sense. One of them is this idea that God is love, and I'll get to it in a moment, right? And the other one is that God is in the now. Those two ideas are like, okay, you just went to Eckhart Tolle on me. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't understand, right? But the truth is, I want to tell you an experience of because I got the opportunity to hear that story last week, the one that you just said now. I went today to see a wet trunk, a woman. She wouldn't open her door, and I knew she wouldn't open her door. I was terrified. I want you to know I was afraid to go see her, and I knew I couldn't call my sponsor today. I knew today was not the day to call him to ask him if I can go see her, right? And I called many people in AA that I really admire a lot, and nobody answered me, right? At the end, I called somebody. He told me, just go. Usually it's not good if you go by yourself. Just go. Just keep somebody on the line with you, which one of the guys is right here. Calvin was on the line with me on that one. But I'm sitting with her and I see her and she's swollen and she's red and she can't walk. And she didn't hear that I was actually knocking on the door. I was so afraid. And there's one thing that always brings me back to center, which is God allow the God in me to see the God in her. And I establish that connection and the fear dissipates, right? And she opens the door and I can sit with her. And I can see that she's in so much pain and I can just hold her hands and look at her in the eyes, and her eyes couldn't even open all the way. And I know that there's a God in there, right?
Mm.
And I was thinking about it. I said, would it be possible maybe that thing that nudges me to go see her, to hold her hands, is that the God of love that we're talking about? You know?
Of course, of course. That's beautiful. I think when we have an experience and it isn't just words and we have this experience, we go, wow, I see myself in that individual. I see God in that individual. I realize, there's really this one consciousness, if you will. But when I begin to see everything as divine, it changes my relationship with everything, right? Everything becomes different in my experience then. And that's how God has changed me. That's how we change. It's one of the ways in which we can change. And ultimately, I think that's how the world can change. I think that is one of the most profound experiences that we can have and certainly leads to this awakening that we talk about.
Like the story you told me that I told you that I love, the parable, right?
mm,
About like, and what you do every day and the opportunity probably that
yes,
you're telling me, that's how you see the divine in everything. It seems
absolutely.
like it seems almost very abstract to say like, why, to see the divine in everything, but the divine is in everything, right? And you get the opportunity to see it on your everyday life.
Yes, yeah. So I'm fortunate. I work with lots of men and women, but lots of men daily. Yeah. So this parable. So we talk about that because we understand that for us, service, there's nothing that will provide perfect community from picking up another drink than helping another alcoholic, right? So, and this isn't proselytizing. So you don't have to be a Christian. And I wouldn't, I study a bunch of different teachings. My favorite are where the East and the West philosophies combine, actually. I love DeMello stuff. And, we talked about Rohr and Merton. But there's a place, and I'll bring this back around that, so Jesus is with the disciples and they're curious who's going to be in charge when he leaves. So this must be after the resurrection and before the ascension or whatever. And it's interesting because in the context of the story, he's God incarnate. So he has the mysteries of the universe at his disposal. He could have said anything when somebody says, who's the greatest? He could have said anything. And it would have been profound or full of wisdom. And then I even thought, well, he even then could have broke it down to some of the things that we can relate to, which is, the greatest among you is going to be the one that's the most knowledgeable, or it's going to be the one that's the most powerful or influential. It's going to be the one that's most courageous. It's going to be the one that's the wealthiest, any number of things. But instead, what he said is the greatest among you is the one that would lay his life down for the other.
Mm.
And then he washed their feet. That's how we experience God, right? When we're in service to somebody, we talk about it all the time. And it can be a variety of different things, holding space for somebody, walking somebody through the steps, visiting a drunk. Those are ways in which we get to experience the greatest gift, I think, one of the greatest gifts that God has given us. And I think of these things, we've talked about this, and Brent, you and I have talked about this for years on and off. I think of the spiritual world. I have this visual of there being streams that have been created and been here since the beginning of time, and this stream of spiritual truth or activity. And, so an example is like if I jump off of a building, I don't invent gravity, I prove it, right? There's this thing that happens when we're of service to one another, that we get into this stream, that we have this sense of purpose, that we have this sense of contentment, that when we are out of self and being useful to somebody else, it's one of the greatest gifts that there is. And I think that's why service is so important, for us, but it's an important principle, spiritual principle in the world. And to your point of the now, where else can you access God?
Mm.
The only place to experience the power of God is in this moment, right? So when we're in service with somebody, when we're being useful, we're laying our life down for somebody, metaphorically.
Mm-hmm.
And then what humility for him to wash their feet. I had that experience many, many, many years ago. I was thinking about it today, actually. I was like, I need to wash somebody's feet. And just have that experience of somebody that I care about and love, wash their feet. How can you not be moved or experience humility and grace in a moment like I'm excited about that. So I know I have to do it.
You know
But
what?
I think the now is that's an example of how we get to experience the now. It's not zenning yourself to the now. It's not some spiritual roof, mountaintop or platform. It's I've cleared away. That's what we talk about. Our spiritual work is to remove the things that block me from the sunlight of the Spirit of God. And Wilson would write about, resentment, dishonesty, fear, selfishness. But it's a lot of things, motives in relationships, lust, criticism, racism, judgment, all kinds of things can separate me. But
Hmm.
when we're useful to other people, what we're doing is we're removing a layer at a time the things that block us from being okay. And typically, this is where I think that numbers fall away from the steps and all that good stuff is fear will drive me into my character defects, which will, pomp, calamity, certain, it'll cover up my ability to be present. So I can't see anything. I can't hear anything. So the work that we do, I think, is the work of preparation.
Hmm.
Reduce ego. Ralph always talks about grow God, shrink Ralph. Reduce ego so that I'm able to be in the present moment. So that's the only place that we can experience God. We're not time travelers.
So that's a good thing that you said. Like, where else can you experience God? That makes me, yeah, duh. That's a good one. Thank you. Right. And then on the other hand, I'm going to go back to the same thing I always go back to, which is this whole idea that I need to engage in this seeking, in this searching, in this finding of something that supposedly is there, right? Available for everything and everybody. And there's one thing that always baffles me, right? And I'm going to go back to the same person I went to see today. Like, what's happening? Like now, I know that many of us get stroke sober after a prayer, right? I know that it happens to many of us. Now, I think about my own journey and I don't remember myself praying. I don't remember myself asking that power to help me. And every time people talk about this whole idea of being surrendered or did I surrender, I don't understand that. There is one thing, that image that comes to my head all the time is just like, I think I stopped running.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I have this idea that God was just running after me, just like trying to catch up and like, are you done yet? Are you stopping? And I'm always having a difficult time making sense of it with this whole idea. Do I need to do something to gain the favor of God, or do I get it just for free? Me and any other, right? And I know we spoke about it last time about why we do this whole idea of the steps, like why we have this design for living. Is
Mm-hmm.
it necessary for me to continue to be or feel um, in the good side of God? You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, that always makes me wonder a lot, you know? What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a paradox because I know there's nothing that we do that earns God's grace. If we did something that earns God's grace, then we would be bottling it, and we would have our own ashram, our own temple, or whatever. We'd be teaching people how to do that. Uh, I think for us, and I can't speak for the whole population. I experienced by watching other people, but my personal experience was in hindsight. There was a moment for me, it was a second arrest in front of my children. Didn't think it was going to be that moment, but that was the time that I had my last drink.
Mm.
Felt like I was separated from alcohol because I couldn't quit. And I think desperation, an opportunity. So there's an opportunity that these angels, if you will, show up in police uniforms, and I'm put in a position that I'm going to be asked to come see you. And judge says, hey, I'm sorry, my attorney says, you're going to have to go to Alcoholics Anonymous because they're going to make you, might as well go. And so there's something that happened. And I love, because Ralph talked this as well, and I've thought about this and it makes sense to me. But so before we ever worked a step or went to a meeting, like between day number 3 and day number 4, I didn't pick up a drink. Between day 8 and 9, I didn't pick up a drink, right? Um, And then I get into this, this path that people say, I can walk down with these steps. And then I realize it's not just my drinking. There's this condition.
Mhm.
And I don't think, I love this notion of God giving us free will. It's obviously true. Our only response is how we respond. Our only freedom is how we respond to something. I don't think God's giving us more favor than the lady you went to see. I don't
Mhm.
think, I don't think God discriminates who receives his love and his grace. I think we sometimes have the receiver closed through some decision that we potentially made. So if God is love and he's everywhere and you can experience in this moment, you don't earn that.
Oh,
That's
that's so beautiful. Let me tell you something. There is a principle that I also like to study a lot of everything, right? So there is this principle that we learn in Kabbalah, which is that the true nature of the creator is to give. That's the nature, right? And that there's something within me that pulls that, which is the desire. And I know we talk a lot about it in the rooms, like God is a gentleman. He only comes if he's invited, right? So that desire that I have, to have God in my life it seems to me sometimes that that's not even a requirement, like what you were saying. Like if God is love, even if I want him or no. So there's two things. As you were talking about that, I thought about two things. Number one of my favorite stories in the Bible also, which is in the Old Testament, and is Moses. Moses is having a conversation with God and he's telling him, I want to see your face. Show me your face, right? And even our last speaker said, I've been looking for the face of God for a long time, right? So Moses, the most humble, according to the Bible, is talking to God and asking that. And God says to him, you will never see my face, but you will always see my back. Meaning in me, what I see is like God is walking right in front of me, clearing the path for me, making sure that he acts in every way possible and that it's always there, whether I see it or not, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know. It's just like, and we were talking, you and I, the other day about this whole idea that when I hear you talk and you're peaceful and serene, and I know that you feel God, and I know that you are just like wanting God, and we talked about this longing, the longing that I describe sometimes like I have a longing and I don't know that the longing that I have for that which I always looked for in drugs, in alcohol, in all the other things that I would, those artificial ways of feeling the longing, and it's now to our disposal. Isn't that just something beautiful? Or
no,
I'm just being too romantic?
no. I think what happens is we have these moments where we're in, communion with God. We're getting insight. We're experiencing something spiritual. And then what we try to do is bring it back into this plane and intellectualize it and articulate it. It feels sometimes like it's just, it's not landing, right? And when
Mm.
you were describing that, I think we're so fixated. I've been fixated at times on compartmentalizing stuff. Here's the people that God chose, or here's the people that have favor. Well, if let's follow this train. If we've created in the image of God, everybody's been given some gift. Life has been breathed into us. And as we sit here, our heart's beating, we have nothing to do with it. Our blood is flowing, we have nothing to do with it. Our eyes are blinking. We have nothing to do with it. Our vocal cords, our ears receiving sound, the brain that processes it. My skin's exfoliating. My hair is growing. All this stuff is everybody's already been touched by God,
Mm.
right? I'll come back, but I heard this beautiful story or these remarks, and I shared this with Brent earlier that Sandy Beach made, and he talked about, when we finally meet God, what if He says, hey, what did you think about the mountains? They're beautiful, aren't they? That wasn't. that wasn't easy to do, but I did that for you.
Mm.
I wanted you to enjoy them. What did you think about music? 12 notes, millions of songs, a way to touch people in so many different ways, so many genres. I did that for you. That was a gift that I had for you. What about love? What about family? Right? So I feel like God is guiding. It's
Mm.
there. And what we have an opportunity is we're going through a process that awakes us spiritually to some of those things that I never thought about the mountains in that way. Before I look at them and go, man, those are beautiful. But when I think about, is that a gift from God? Is that a love letter for me to be able to move through my day now and to see God or me in somebody, to see the sunset differently, to hear a laugh differently, to just have a moment of gratitude? You know, when it's this cold outside, you know, I think about people that aren't inside, just these things. And I'm awaking to it. Um,
Mm.
but I don't think I think we labor over the why so much to go, well, hold it. There's a baseline. We've been created and we're here having a conversation about God, right? What we choose to do, whether we walk into the love of God and into the grace of God, is our responsibility. I love it. I think DeMello talked about, you know, there's a bunch of roses. Nobody's smelling them right now. But if we would go and stand next to a rose, we'd get the fragrance.
Mm.
We just put ourselves in a position. If it's beautiful and sunny out and I'm inside with the window closed, I don't benefit from the warmth or the light. If I go
Mm.
walk into the sun, it doesn't discriminate against anybody. It warms me up. I put myself in a position to experience that. No
Mm.
different than the shade of a tree, right? I have to put myself in position. And I think that for us, that means less of me and being open, right? We talked about this notion of, like magic and the intelligence in a seed. It's there already. It's been created with all of this magnificence. But if the seed hits a piece of concrete and the rain washes it away, you got nothing. If the soil has been tilled, right?
Mm.
So if we put ourselves in position to till the heart, right, seed drops in that soil, then the creator comes and he grows it with the sun and the rain. Same
Mm.
seed, right? The same seed with this amazing intelligence in it. So the person not receiving God's grace is still in active alcoholism, or the person in the rooms troubled from untreated alcoholics. I think it's the same thing. Our opportunity is to continue to tell one another, you know, oh, that's the third step for us is, you know, the bondage of substance is take away my difficulties.
Mm.
Set an example. God's power in my life, God's love in my life, God's way of life. Then we hold that mirror up to one another and go, hey, man, this is where you're kind of getting off a little bit. There's an opportunity to experience God's power and love through this way of life. It's not the rose. We're not the rose. I mean, but we get an opportunity to put ourselves in a position. So I
What
think,
about if I ask you this? Tell me what you think about this, okay? So we're talking about the gift and the flowers and the mountains and all these beautiful things that, of course, like, listen, I am just a sucker for all of that, absolutely. But I'm thinking about this because this is something that is happening right now in my own journey, the one that I'm walking at the time that I am, right? For the past time, I have come to really understand and realize that within those gifts that are there, my life is one of them. My personality, the who I am, the desire that my creator has that I am still here by the evidence that I'm still here, right? But for the longest time, my life had no value. And had no value. I actually want to say that when drugs and alcohol stopped working for me, I chased death like with the same desperation. Because I didn't want to live, right? So now we start this journey, we get into this, we start to be transformed. And I don't even know it. And I can tell you that in these 12, God has done for me the miraculous, like remove an eating disorder, which I never thought it was going to happen. Like talk about alcohol being my master or drugs being an eating disorder sucks for all of us who have been through that. We know it's like crazy. And the desire to kill myself and the drugs and the alcohol and all these things. And not only that, I can be a mama. There's so many beautiful things God has done for me. But all throughout, I don't realize the value of my own life. I don't realize the gift that I do have, right? And here comes, yes, the continuing to do this. Yes, the growing in understanding and effectiveness and good sponsorship and good examples in my life. But I get to understand that I need to take care of this gift of mine as well. That I can start to give myself permission to be the Raquel that God wanted me to be. That I have permission to make a lot of mistakes. That I have permission to be intense and crazy and this, because and we talked about this, that there's a million, like, there's so many types of felines. There's lions and there's jaguars and there's this. And there's a Darrell who is nice and keen and just like soft-spoken. And there's a crazy Raquel who is like he's painting, right? And that I get to see that today. And I was talking to a friend about it, about the whole idea of God. And I say, it seems to me that today, by the grace of God, I got the permission to be Raquel fully. That I get to enjoy the path that God himself has forged for me with my A's and B's and C's and whoever the way that I am, right? So what do you think about that? Us, I don't know if guys are like that, but I tell you, because I sponsor a lot of women, we are so quick on picking up the bat and beating ourselves over with inventory. Jeez, with the 11th step, with everything, right? It's just like, give me more, give me more. So what is your take on that, Darrell?
One, I think everybody's, we're all wonderfully and beautifully made. I don't think that's the beautiful thing about this. And then the book talks about where people that normally wouldn't mix. And I have to say too, for me that, I've gone through tragedy. I've gone through, those bedevilments, man, when people are going, hey, how's your personal relationships? I'm going, awful. What about your emotional nature? Well, it's not just 0 to 16 rage. It's this massive sensitivity on, can't be real help. I mean, I'm running the table on all those things. So I think that, what's happened, and this is evolution. This spiritual, this thing that we're talking about, it isn't changing our personality. I love one of the things Ralph said: sponsor inside your personality. Share inside of your personality. Sing your song, right? And it's probably tempting at time to go, oh, I want to be well spoken, or I want to be, that person or this person, and it's all fear driven. I want people to like me and all the other stuff. I think the longer that I've been on this path, and especially when I'm disciplined, meditation has been a game changer for me. It's just been a game changer for me. And it's not during the meditation time, it's the hours. I mean, that's beautiful. It's the time away from that. I'm like, I'm responding differently. I'm not as easily, I'm not using up energy easily. I'm not, turning to morbid thought. It's not my reflex. But that's not how I was born.
Yeah.
How
do you meditate?
I really, transcendental meditation is the practice that I have, and I went to somebody, got some instructions around that, and it's the easiest and most accessible and approachable way. I read, as I've said before, read a whole bunch of different spiritual things and different teachers, but that really is just this willingness to sit quietly and not to grab my thoughts, and allow whatever's happening to pass. There's a mantra. It means nothing because I don't want my mind to move. gets to a place where the idea is that you transcend and, all the things that we are, and you get to this place where you're able to have more consciousness
Mm,
with the one. Doesn't It's not a blissful or a get high type of thing at all times for me, but the discipline of being quiet and allowing my mind to not just because I'm a visionary, I'm a strategic thinker, all that stuff, and so I was a guy in early recovery that I would have to say, I don't even know if I believe my own nonsense. I got to wait until I talk and go, oh, is that true or not? Right.
mm,
So there's this thing that meditation has tamped down for me, and allowed me to be, quiet for a period of time. So I try to meditate a couple times a day for 20, 25 minutes, something like that. Uh,
mm,
and that has benefited me in the way that I navigate. Um,
mm,
and it's made me more conscious and aware, I think, of God. I was, what was I, 9 or 10 years sober, and a woman that I've known for 50 years. We were married for 22 years, and we got divorced. You know, we were separated for a couple of years, got divorced. 6 months later, got remarried. I mean, after the divorce was final, but there's a separation. So I've gone through times, in sobriety, out of sobriety, where it was just craziness. So the
mhm,
idea of how to, those 10-step promises, you're going to cease fighting anything or anybody, including alcohol, I thought there's no way. Or the fifth step where you're going to, sit alone at perfect peace and ease. I'm like, there is no way I can do that.
right.
And I just began, and I meet a group of people, every morning and, for the first meditation piece, just to help hold me, accountable and put a discipline in my life. But I don't know that that's everybody's experience, but I cannot believe how much I've benefited from just being quiet and allowing whatever I'm thinking about when it comes up, not to grab it and choke it, just to let it move. That has rewired me in some way. And so I would also say where I've said with that, I could tell you all the awful things that we all have awful things at times, but I'm in the most content place that I've been in my sobriety. And it's not the easiest time, in my recovery.
Um,
It is absolutely as we continue to practice these things, the evolution, the building a character. My grand sponsor, Bazan, talks about the joy of being a good man. The joy of getting away with what I can was kind of the deal before, right?
mhm,
But there's this thing now where I'm like, there is joy. And I used to want you to think I was honest. I'm honest today. I used to want you to think I had integrity. I didn't have the power to do those things. I remember, so Gary Brown, my first sponsor, I remember saying to him one time, I'm like, Gary, I really want, it's early in my recovery. I really want to be better. I want to be a better man, a better dad, a better husband, better employee, better son, all that stuff. And he says, I believe you. And then he took me to the part of our book says, lack of power is your limit, Darrell. You're doing what you can with the power that you have.
mm,
And so that then kind of woke me up to the fact that I'm going to have to plug into some juice somewhere.
right.
So some of it began, initially like, I got to get something going. And then you come in contact with, this power and you realize it's not just for your benefit. This is to help, you know, uh, equip you to be of help to God and those around you.
Mm,
Because back to that parable, hey, guess what? When you do that, this is when you're really going to know me. When you start being able to do things for my kids, then you'll really know me. You'll understand how much I love you. And that's not some lofty spiritual thing. We were having a conversation earlier today, and a practical thing for me was, can I listen with as much intention as I want people to hear me?
mm,
That was something I needed to practice. Hold space, not trying to get to the place I want people to get to. Hold space and really try to understand. The St. Francis prayer talks about that. But I couldn't do that. And I think, the nature of an alcoholic sometimes is I'm just trying to get mine, whatever that is. So that's how I know that God's power is real, because it's changed me. And not just changed me for my benefit so that I'm shiny. I think about my fellows. I still think about me, right? But there's compassion that I have, where people used to irritate me. I'm compassionate now, going, man, the reason why they're showing up that way is there has to be something going on with them, or they've had to experience something, or there's a problem. I mean, but before this work, it would have just been a response. I get irritated if somebody's in my left-hand lane. Get out of my left-hand lane. I got to get in the left lane, or you're in the aisle with 15 items and it's supposed to be 12 or less. Just silliness. I heard a beautiful thing. It was Clint Hodges was talking about asking Chuck Chamberlain at some point, like, how do you stand driving in Southern California with all the traffic? And he says, well, I just drive my car.
Mm.
And I went, oh, there you go. Because I'm typically driving whoever's to my left, whoever's to my right, the guy behind me's too close, the guy in front of me's too slow. I can just drive my car, right? So these pragmatic things that at moments I just couldn't hear before, now they land in a different way, and I'm willing to try to apply them in a different way, and it's just so wonderful. It leads to deep gratitude, and that deep gratitude just seems like it activates this incredible grace from God.
You know what? You were talking right now about Choksi and seeing sometimes things from a totally different perspective. This time around that we read the book with our sponsorship family, something happened. There's this thing that he talks about that what actually keeps me in a bad state almost is like that idea of separation, right? That there is no separation between me and the power, that everything is already given. He says that everything is given at the foundation of the world. I don't even have to beg, right? I don't have to spin the wheel of prayers to see which one I'm going to use to get what I want, right? I don't have to beg God anymore. So that's, before we close the meeting, I want to say that, and I talked to you about it, one of the things that changed me a lot, I used to be the person who prayed like that. God, please, did you, like, and for those who cannot see me, I was always like looking up and like, God, like there's like somebody out there that I'm addressing to. And little by slowly, really, with meditation and with just like a desire to change where I actually feel God, I realized that I can throw my prayers inward in a way that I don't have to beg, in a way that I can throw them with a lot of, not hope, but faith, with a knowing that this has already been heard, and that's it. So before, I used to say the same prayers many times, like, please God, just like, make sure this is okay, make sure that is okay, make sure. And last time I actually wrote a letter to God. And it was about that, particularly about being able to see life with those set of eyes that allows me to see that everything is already given, that I'm not separated, that I don't need to struggle through the journey of life, right? And I made the letter, and I said, before I put it away, I said, this is what you know is in my heart. I give you this, because you already know what's in my heart. And I folded it, and I said, I know my prayer has been heard. And I put it in my tomato bush over there, which is right now with a frozen tomato. But I put it there because I'm practicing that whole idea that if everything is given, if you really care for me, like everybody says you do, the evidence in my life proves that you have been a part of my life over and over and over again, right? That I have seen your back over and over again, and that you gave me this opportunity to live a life that I never thought I was going to live. this is something that is happening, that incredible thing that like, I have so much faith. I don't have to repeat the prayer. Thank you. I can let it go. And then to your point, really act on that third step that I took, right? Saying, okay, while you do this, I'll take care of our kids, all of us playing here together. And just God, don't ever let me forget. This is what it is. God, don't ever let me forget that we're dancing together.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I think we were talking the other night, I think about our defects. It's not fix me. That's the point where I dance with God. That's when I want to draw near because I know that I can't change myself.
Mm.
And then the other thing I've experienced is we always talk about change and give. The most beautiful moments is when I'm not doing any of that. I'm just with God.
Mm.
And when that happens, there is no problem. There's no problem. Right? It's when I'm in yesterday or tomorrow and, all the other stuff, the fear. And now I want to manage.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm really, that's why I think meditation is so powerful. When I just sit with God, there's no problem. I don't have a problem. And then there's there's a transformation that occurs. And, it sounds crazy until you experience it, like anything else. We were talking the other night. I love that movie Field of Dreams, where he cuts down the cornfield. All of these players, are out playing and, and they can't see. His brother-in-law can't see him. And he keeps saying, Ray, why did you cut the corn down, Ray? We're going to lose the farm, Ray. We're going to lose the farm. And they're playing behind, but he can't see him. The little girl chokes on a hot dog, falls off the bleachers, and the doctor, I can't remember his name, he steps over the baseline, and then he turns his normal age, walks over and saves her because of the doctor, and now the guy can see. And he's like, don't sell the farm, Ray. Don't sell the farm. And that's the deal. When you said earlier, well, we're already in it. Well, that's that story about the fish, right? The two fish swimming and the big fish comes and the little fish go, hey, how are you? And the big fish says, oh, I'm doing great. The water is beautiful today, and takes off. And then the little fish go, man, we better go find some water. And so we're awake to it. It just, and so I think the encouragement is we don't have to have any profound knowledge or any lofty experience. What we have to do is lay down our life for others, be useful to other people, put ourselves in a position to smell the rose, and then God will do God. I mean, he's God. He'll do that. And then what we do is we say, now come back and tell us about it.
That's right.
Storytelling organization, come and tell us about it.
I love it. And here's the last thing I want to say. And in all of that, to add that whatever way, I always say this, the God of my understanding will speak to me in ways that only I can understand. And that the way that you experience God and the way that Maggie experiences God and the way that Debbie experiences God is just another addition to the color. I don't have to experience God like you. So anyways, thank you so much, Darrell, for the invitation. And I think that's
so good to be
for
with you.
us. Thank you. Kat,
Okay. All right. Do we have any questions? Does anybody want to, did y'all get any in the chat?
I don't think so.
Anybody want to raise a hand? And
I saw Bill Swan had a hand up early and then he took it down. So I don't know if he really wanted to interrupt or he was just harassing us. I don't know what he was.
After all that spirituality, you're going to start lying. If my hand went up, it went up in the car. I was coming home from the prison. I told you I'd get on here.
And we were talking earlier. I said, see, that's God right there because they're going to let Bill out of prison. The saying, you can let him out.
Listen, that wasn't God. It was a woman's prison, bro. I tried to get him to keep me. But listen, honest to God, everything that you guys talked about has been what's been being disclosed to me the last few days. And I said, if I want to get closer, if I want to know God better, what should I do? Spend more time. And then what I realized is, so I got up in the morning, talked to him, but guess what? He didn't want me to sit there all day and talk to him, get out and do something. And then it dawned on me, if I want to know him better, Darrell, I got to spend time with his kids. He let me spend time with about 100 of his kids today. And then it dawned on me, here's the deal. I said, the fight's fixed. I have to help other people if I'm going to survive. And then it dawned on me, that has been God's will the whole time. I missed it. We're here to help each other. What the hell are you doing here, Bill Swan? You ain't going to be here for long. Get busy. Oh, I love you guys. Thank you, Raquel. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Bill.
Good, Bill.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Bill. Somebody asked if I could open the chat. The chat is open to send questions just for the co-host.
I know.
Yeah. So, well, I guess in closing, as stated in page 29 in our big book, we hope no one will consider these self-revealing accounts in bad taste. Our hope is that many alcoholic desperately in